This is Backstage Bay Area. Now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
This is Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the San Francisco jazz music scene. Today we are welcoming Caity Gyorgy, a remarkable Canadian jazz singer and songwriter, bringing her music to the Joe Henderson Lab at the SF Jazz Center on Friday, November 7th. Caity's a three-time Juno Award winner known for crisp bebop phrasing, luminous swing, and original songs that feel built for the bandstand. Caity, welcome to Backstage Bay Area. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. Let's start with your origins and musical influences. How did you first find your way into jazz singing?
That's a good question. There's a couple different answers. My first kind of exposure to jazz was when my dad would put on the Charlie Brown Christmas album by Vince Guaraldi when I was a kid, and we'd listen to that like as soon as December started. But then, I went to high school and I was in all of the choirs I possibly could be, and I was singing in the vocal jazz choir, and I loved the repertoire. And then I started dating a jazz drummer, and that got even more involved with the genre. And after that, my father had given me a CD, a Starbucks compilation CD of jazz singers, and it had like phenomenal vocalists that aren't always in like the top big three, who I like to say are Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, and Ella Fitzgerald. Abbey Lincoln was also on this, same with Blossom Dearie and Betty Carter, June Christy. And so I kind of fell in love with this style of singing and the way of delivering a lyric in such an interesting way that's swinging, but also improvisatory. And I love that.
Would you say those singers that you just mentioned shaped your sound early on, or were there others? And what did you take from them?
I would say like my biggest influence when I started was definitely Ella Fitzgerald, and because of the scatting. And as soon as I heard the Blue Skies recording from the Irving Berlin songbook album, I think it's a Paul Weston arrangement, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, she was scatting for chorus upon chorus, and I just fell in love with the idea that I could be improvisatory just like a saxophone player or a trumpet player. I like the freedom that entails. I love how it's allowing me to be able to give my own voice to the music and my own ideas, while also, formulating different sentences using a language that I've learned, like the bebop language,
right,
but making my own story with that language.
All right. Well, let's play the first song in the show. It's your tune called That Doesn't Matter, and it's from your recently released album called Caity Gyorgy with Strings. What's the story behind this song, and what sparked the lyric and the mood?
So I like the story behind this one. Mark Limacher did all of the arrangements and co-wrote the music on the album with me on this song. And this is the first song that we wrote together. And I had initially started writing it after him and I had completed our first small orchestral recordings. So after I'd won my second Juno, he called me up on the phone and he said, "Caity, let me arrange something for you." And I said, okay. And I took a look at my savings and I said, okay, well, I have about the budget where we can pay for about 10 string players, the rhythm section, and the studio costs. Is that going to be enough? And he said, yep, which was a complete and total lie. It wasn't there were not enough string players for his liking. But I got to the recording studio and I was looking around and I noticed, oh my God, there's way more than 10 string players here. And I go up to him and I'm like, I'm noticing more than 10 people here. And he said, surprise, happy birthday. And he had gotten me an additional 5 string players and a clarinetist. And we recorded these 3 beautiful songs, which were originals of mine. And as soon as the strings started playing, like even just that first tuning note, I was like, oh my God, we have to do this on a much larger scale. And I started scheming about how we could make an entire album with an entire orchestra. And once those arrangements had been recorded, I listened to them and I was so taken by the arrangements that I started writing That Doesn't Matter. And I'd written all of the lyrics, but I hadn't finished the bridge yet. And the lyrics are about how Mark and I are like very different. Like, he's very fancy and I'm like a little less fancy. But at the root of it, we both have the same sort of taste in music, and we both have this desire to, create beautiful melodies and compositions, and we have a very, very similar musical instincts. So I brought That Doesn't Matter, the first couple A sections, to him when we were working together up in Whitehorse in the Yukon. And I said, can you help me with this bridge? And we worked on it together during one of our teaching breaks because we were doing workshops up there. And the song was created, and it was the first song we wrote together. The lyrics are they're kind of cheeky, but they're all true. Like, Mark has beautiful crystal glassware. I usually have, a plastic water bottle that I found because I forgot my normal water bottle at home. He writes using like the Cadillac of pencils, according to the New York Times, the Palominos. I'm usually writing using like my notes app on my cell phone, And he's got a wonderful way with words, and I do too when it comes with lyrics, I believe. But in the moment, sometimes I'm a little bit more stammery than he is. He speaks with distinction, and I am usually very, very hyperbolic. So that's the story of the song.
All right. Well, let's listen to it now. This is Caity Gyorgy with That Doesn't Matter, and we'll talk some more on the other side.
You drink out of crystal, I drink out of polyethylene, but that doesn't matter to you, to me. You write with a pencil and I write using mice and keys and screens, but that doesn't matter to you, to me. Either way, the drink is drunk. Either way, the words are written. Either way, the time is spent in thoughtful conversation. You speak with distinction, and I speak in unending hyperbole, but that doesn't matter to you, to me.
That was Caity Gyorgy doing That Doesn't Matter, and she's my guest on Backstage Bay Area. Caity, your new album, Caity Gyorgy with Strings, features original songs by you and pianist and composer Mark Limacher. Mark wrote the arrangements, conducted the orchestra, and the orchestra is entirely Canadian musicians based in Calgary. What inspired you to put these songs in a string setting, and how did Mark's arrangements shape the overall sound? What was that like?
Well, the inspiration came from we've been doing a lot of smaller orchestral recordings, and we wanted to do a full orchestra album because, him and I both love that sound so much. And like, for me, and I know for him as well, we're both inspired by arrangers like Don Costa, Gordon Jenkins, Nelson Riddle, Conrad Salinger, Henry Mancini, all of Axel Stordahl, so many wonderful arrangers of the 20th century. And their work with singers, Frank Sinatra or Edie Gourmet, all of those sort of recordings, they're just so incredible, and they're not really being done as much anymore. I mean, it's obviously incredibly challenging to get that many people in a room, and with budgetary constraints, it's even more challenging. We wrote the music together. We wanted this to be an all-original album, and we've been writing together for about 2 years, and we'd come up with this collection of 8 songs that we thought would be wonderful to add orchestral treatment to. And I think Mark's arrangements are just such a beautiful reflection of all of our musical influences. Like, to me, That Doesn't Matter sounds like a Mancini-esque arrangement.
Right.
Something like I've Been Kicking Myself is very similar to the MGM Orchestra Conrad Salinger sound. And I think some of the slower ballad songs, like 267, remind me of like Gordon Jenkins. we just kind of wanted to recreate a sound that we both love that we seldom hear anymore, and doing it with Canadian musicians, specifically recording in Calgary with many members of the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra who are friends of Mark's, a lot of them, because he plays with the orchestra there for a lot of their pop shows. We wanted to do it there because we believe that Calgary has these wonderful recording facilities and these world-class musicians, and things like that aren't done nearly enough in Calgary, so we wanted to do it. And we had wonderful engineers to help us along the way, like Graham Lassard at the National Music Center, and we had so many people helping us, but it's a labor of love, and we were supported by several grants from Canadian granting organizations, including the Canada Council for the Arts, Factor, and the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. We've been very fortunate and have had this wonderful sense of community that I think is, very common in the music community. A lot of musicians, we want to create beautiful things. We want to create things that we love together. And I think every member of that orchestra, did us like a huge favor by lending their beautiful musicianship to us. And we're so grateful for it.
It certainly came out fantastic.
Thank you. I'm really, really proud of it. I think it's my favorite album that I've made so far.
So during the recording process, were there any moments in the studio that really stayed with you?
I think honestly hearing the orchestra play the arrangements for the first time, because I know when Mark is arranging these, he has an idea of what it's going to sound like in his head. And I did all of the formatting and the copy work. So, I'm working in the music notation software, making sure the parts look pretty and we don't have any weird double flats or sharps or anything like that. But for me, like, I can look at the score, but I don't have the same ability to hear what the score sounds like in my head as he does. So when I got to actually hear the arrangements that I'd been like sort of a little bit exposed to through music notation software MIDI, but in real life, it was pretty exceptional. I mean, it's a really hard feeling to describe, to be able to hear your music come to life in that kind of a way.
I can imagine.
I think listening to the album is the best way to do it. But I think another moment that stood out was I had the whole thing catered, and the musicians seemed very grateful for that. So I want the musicians to know that we appreciate them. And when they were like, "Oh, this catering is great," like that was a really standout moment for me too, even though it wasn't necessary.
Well, let's hear another one of your songs, and this one is called "You'll Learn." What should we be listening for in this song, either in the lyric or the way the band puts it across?
Well, I think for me, this song, when Mark was playing me sort of how it was going to sound on the piano, like without any of the other instruments, there's like certain sections where I said, "Oh my goodness, this sounds just like the end of Act 1 of Tosca by Puccini, the Puccini opera." And he's like, "Oh, that's what I was going for." So if people can put their opera glasses on and listen for that in this one, that would be a good one. The lyrics in this one, I'm really proud of this set of lyrics. This song kind of came from a voice memo that Mark had recorded on his phone. He sent it to me, and then one morning I just found the lyrics all at once. And I was going through some pretty turbulent things in my life, and so the lyrics are sort of a reflection of that, as if somebody was speaking to me. So the voice that you hear singing the lyrics is not me, it's of another person speaking to me, and it was kind of how I felt a little bit trapped in a situation that I was in. And I'd never really sort of explored those topics in my writing before. So this was one of the first times I became a little bit, I don't want to say darker, but a little bit more introspective into the darker things in my life.
Interesting. Well, let's play it now. This is You'll Learn by Caity Gyorgy, and you're listening to Backstage Bay Area.
Play into my scheme, say that you love all that I am, and all that I can't be. Stretch truth if you must, say you won't need more than I have, and in time you might find I could turn into your friend, into the one you want. heart isn't to blame. Why would you know it can be taught how to dismiss its instincts? Stay just for a while under the guise of the vows you've been sold. You'll learn to love me as I need you to. You'll grow to understand our romance. I'll build you back into the life I have in mind. This time could be your last chance. You too, you'll grow to understand our romance. I'll love you back into the life I have in mind. This time could be your last chance. Ooh.
You just heard You'll Learn by Caity Gyorgy, who is my guest today on Backstage Bay Area. Caity, let's talk about your upcoming show at Joe Henderson Lab, shows, I should say, at Joe Henderson Lab in San Francisco. You're there on Friday, November 7th for 2 shows. What can Bay Area audiences look forward to at these performances?
Oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be my first time performing in San Francisco. And of course, like Joe Henderson Lab, SF Jazz is such a fantastic place to perform. I can't believe it. And the audiences can they can expect a lot of my favorite jazz standards by some of my favorite composers, including Frank Lesser, Julie Stein, Cole Porter, Jerome Kern, as well as some of my own music. And the arrangements, it's pretty highly arranged because I love that kind of sound. Like, I'm very inspired by arrangements that like people like Betty Carter did, or like some of those Oscar Peterson arrangements specifically from like the West Side Story album are very inspirational to me. So people can expect that kind of thing. I'm joined by a fantastic group. Mark Limacher is joining me on piano. I have Thomas Heinbeck from Toronto and Ontario on bass, and Efejimu Edaroma Jr. on drums. The audience will hopefully enjoy this all-Canadian band, although I know Effa lives in Los Angeles now. But I'm very excited. I love sharing some of my favorite standards and arrangements of these standards with audiences, and I like to be very cheeky with my arrangements, and I hope that the audience enjoys a little bit of humor within those things, because they will definitely find that, I hope. Hopefully they have a funny bone.
Yeah, the San Francisco jazz audience is very accepting, so you'll have a good time there. And it's a great room, too, to perform.
I've looked online and I can't wait. You got to pinch me because I can't believe this is the venue I get to have my San Francisco debut in.
All right. Well, let me remind our listeners, Caity Gyorgy performs 2 shows at the Joe Henderson Lab inside the SF Jazz Center on Friday, November 7th at 7 p.m. and the later show at 8:30 p.m. Tickets are available now at sfjazz.org. And for Caity's music, album news, tour schedule, please visit CaityGyorgy.com, and I'll spell it for you because it's a little different than it sounds. It's CAITYGYORGY.com. Caity, thanks so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve.
We'll be right back.
Hey musicians, would you like to be a guest on Backstage Bay Area? Just email the host and let him know when you'll be playing in the Bay Area. The address is backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning into the Backstage Bay Area podcast. Don't forget to visit us online at backstagebayarea.com for more insights and stories. Be sure to join us next time for more engaging conversations with local talent and touring musicians. Until then, keep the music alive, and we'll see you backstage.